How you doing, sir? I'm Chris. Bob Hart. Hi, Bart. I know your name. I know that name.
I do too.
It's fine.
So, Bob, I'm
fine.
I don't know you, Bob, but
I appreciate that though.
So are you gonna be there?
Seriously, I'm gonna get in trouble.
I don't want to get in trouble.
I'm gonna get in trouble.
I don't want to.
So Saturday, we're having our Patriot.
I've met Bob before. Sorry, I met Bob.
Like it, like it. Are you around?
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's general discussion meeting here in the BCC conference room. Today is January the 28th. It is 1 p.m. We will start with item number 1 on the agenda, which is declaration of potential conflicts. And I'll start with you, Commissioner Smith.
You know, there's a possibility, so the abundance of caution and not knowing if there is any, I'll declare there could possibly be a conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Burnett.
Again, I could be a conflict of interest just because I know different various people around here, but the items that we're talking about today, I don't see a potential conflict.
Okay, and I will just start by saying that I am a member of a group and thus I will be potential conflict with Senate Bill 762 because I'm a resident and property owner in Josephine County. So this will impact me or affect me most likely directly. So with that, we'll move on to agenda item. Oh, yes, please.
If I may, appreciate it. And believe it or not, I can declare a potential or actual conflict because I too am a property owner whose property is included within this map. And so I actually asked the Ethics Commission yesterday for an opinion on whether, you know, you would need to declare actual potential conflicts, and I'm waiting to hear back. But out of abundance of caution, I do want to make it clear that I am also included in the wildfire map as it's been published out.
If I may. Chair.
Yes, please.
So I concur with that. I'm a property owner and of course, Senate Bill 762 that's on here could be a conflict of interest because I'm a property owner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then just to give you an opportunity to Commissioner Smith, if you would like to be more specific,
Well-
it's up to you. I'm not.
No, there's gonna be a conflict of interest because I'm opposed to that law. So there we go.
Okay. Right, okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Let's move on to agenda item number 2. And this is the contract between Josephine County and Cobble Fir and Begwin LLP for legal services provided to the Planning and Building and Safety, Solid Waste and Enforcement. This is the department here in Josephine County, and we're looking at a contract. So, Counselor.
We are. So this would be a contract to provide legal services. The county legal office currently has 2 vacancies of full-time positions. And so instead of actually filling those vacancies, one for an attorney, one for support staff, in my estimation, it would be significantly more economical to send this work out to the firm to do it. And the best way to approach that, in my estimation, and an estimation of some others that we've consulted, is to have the firm do legal services for the Community Development Department, and that includes planning, building safety, solid waste, and code enforcement. And so I would characterize this as being an attempt to create significant savings of tax dollars for this organization.
Okay, great. And you reviewed the terms. You said that you and some others have reviewed it, and it falls within what we're trying to do here for the department.
It does.
In terms of
It does.
representation.
Yes, the department leadership met actually with this firm yesterday to see if they were going to sync up, and it sounds like they had a good experience. So And it's gonna be it's not gonna be the masthead attorney from this firm doing the work, as I understand it. It's gonna be one of the other attorneys. Yeah, so.
All right, question.
Yes,
Questions?
please.
So is this a 1-year renewable thing and we're gonna try it out and see if this works for us or not? Okay.
Try it out for 1 year, see if it works for us.
Yeah, we're not in a long-term commitment on this. Okay.
No, it's 1 year. All right, it's a 30-day termination clause.
30-day termination?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's a mutual from
mutual, no, so 8.1 at the top of page 3 out of 4.
Up for cause? Or for
No,
convenience?
convenience.
Oh, okay. Familiar with that one. All right.
Right, so that's just in case it doesn't go.
So they can terminate us and we can terminate them with the
Yes.
30-day notice.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, great. Commissioner Smith, I saw that you might have a question for.
So we know this guy's highly qualified.
Yeah.
The firm is highly qualified.
Yes.
This saves the county by not having an employee. that
2
goes on
employees.
Insurance,
That's
and everything else.
That's exactly right, Commissioner.
Yeah.
So salary is not the only expense of employees. There's also the benefits and additional expenses that go on top of that.
So I think it's a good move.
So do we have a rough estimate how much we could be saving
No, we do.
dollar wise
Uh,
estimate? If you took in.
I can if you want to hear. So I would say that the 2 positions are for the 1 year period would be in the scale of I want to say about 250,000 all told, maybe a little more than that. And please don't hold me to that, those out there listening, but I'm calling it about 250,000.
That's why you said estimate, yeah.
Total estimate, but that's as opposed to 81,000 for this.
Wow, okay. Well, it sounds like something that is in a good direction to try,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just to be clear, then these are positions that you're not filling,
I'm not filling these positions
okay, for this reason.
for this reason.
Okay.
That's exactly right. So we're not gonna fill. This will be on tomorrow's business session for your formal consideration. We're just talking today.
Okay, okay, perfect.
So we'll go to WBS on this.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
tomorrow,
perfect.
decision. But do we have any more questions here for
No
council?
questions, sir.
Okay,
None for me.
okay, I have none either. So we'll move this to the WBS tomorrow.
Yes.
Fantastic, and we're good with that. We'll move forward to item number 3, which is a discussion in regards to Oregon Senate Bill 762 and the Oregon Department of Forestry Wildlife Hazard Map. And we have a guest here, Mr. Hart. Please come up here and I would like to allow Commissioner Smith to maybe give us an introduction here. I believe that you've reached out to Mr. Hart and made the invitation, and if you can give us a little primer here on what we're doing here this.
Well, I reached out to Bob and Bob reached out to me. We have worked together on the Senate bill before. We had some public meetings that were very well attended because people are very concerned about this. Bob has 20 years' experience in planning. He's a land use consultant and he knows how to tear these laws apart like nobody else. And I really appreciate his work. So I've called him to this meeting because I figured he could give you a good explanation of this from a technical point of view. So with that said, this is a crazy law. We know that this started with a little study group to study how wildfires were caused by power lines. And through that little study group, they came up with what, 110-page report. And that they basically took in the legislature, gutted it and stuffed it, and here we are with Senate Bill 762. So, and this is a far-reaching, our county, Josephine County will be the hardest hit county in the whole state. Especially North Valley and the Illinois Valley, they'd be extremely hard hit with the legislation. Jackson County and Douglas County have talked to commissioners of both those counties. They're with us. They don't want to enforce this law, but here we are. We've got a window of opportunity for the people to appeal this to March 10th. That's why we're having a public meeting, January 30th, 7 to 9 p.m. at the Josephine County Fairgrounds. And Bob will be there with me to educate the people and hopefully motivate the people to take some actions. That's what the meeting is all about. So if you would, Mr. Chair, I could turn this over to Bob and he can explain.
Yeah, absolutely, please.
Right. It's kind of like coming home. 'Cause I got 22 years in with Josephine County before I saw the light and jumped over to the dark side. One of the things that I wanted to discuss with the board is not just appeals from public. There's a provision in the statute that says local governments can appeal as well. And I talked to people at ODF and they had good comments about you, about notifications and things like that. Because at first they wanted to say the county could only appeal on their properties. They couldn't appeal on behalf of the whole county. They went to their Department of Justice and they were told that's overreach. They couldn't make that statement. So the board yourselves can appeal on behalf of Josephine County. I can give you a deep background, a short background, however much you want to try and get people up to speed on this, because this is one of those things of the phraseology is never let a good problem go to waste. Because this thing started, as Ron said, with a little study group. They had a gut and stuff bill, but Governor Brown required an analysis of wildfire back in 2019. There was a report published and it said the biggest problem here in the state of Oregon is federal lands, that they're not being managed and fuel loads are extreme. So that's where it really got a energy put behind it. Then in 2020, because of the fires at Alameda, that's when they jumped on board with the 762 and used the excuse that the properties down in Phoenix and Talent was a prime reason of why we needed this bill. As I've talked to Senator Golden, Phoenix and Talent aren't affected by this bill. They're in a moderate area. They don't have the mandate requirements that the people in the high fire danger areas are. So this isn't going to do anything to prevent the kind of fires that they use the excuse that we have to do this because of what happened in 2020. The biggest impact to private property owners is the requirement for defensible space and for home hardening. Those are mandatory. They're changing administrative rules to put those into effect, which will require people to clear around their structures, not moonscape kind of clearing, but reduce vegetation. And they're supposed to be inspected as well, giving people the authority to go on private property and inspect them and tell them, you've got to trim trees. This is what you've got to do with your vegetation. It says in the statute that that can be delegated to local governments to take care of that, but it will come under the jurisdiction of the Oregon State Fire Marshal. When I reread it again, it says that those codes will be updated as the international wildfire codes evolve. So whenever the newest thing comes along, they'll roll it into the Oregon requirements. And so they're moving goalposts constantly. We'll never know 1 year to the next what's going to be the next step that has to be done. That's one part of it. The other part is the home hardening requirement, and that is whenever you make major changes to structures on your property or rebuild or build a new building, you will have to come into the latest international wildfire codes that requires different things for siding, for roofing, for soffits and construction things. Depending on who you talk to, everybody comes up with a different number of how much additional cost that's going to be. The last thing I heard was just a regular single family dwelling. It could add up to $4,000 or $5,000 additional over what current codes are. All that was in the original Bill 762. When it was adopted in 2021, it was during COVID. So they closed the state capitol. People didn't know what was going on that much. It kind of went through in the weeds, if you will, that people didn't know what happened until it was too late and 762 was adopted. Part of the requirement is that people would be notified of this new legislation. They sent out letters that they were going to have a meeting. Apparently, State Forestry said that they were receiving death threats over this, and so they canceled the in-person meetings in Josephine County. The one that was scheduled for Jackson County, they changed it to a Zoom meeting. They had over 2,000 people on that Zoom meeting, everybody vocally against it. The state withdrew the map, said, we'll fix it, we'll make it all better. And that's when they came up with the revisions of Senate Bill 80, which happened in the 2023 legislation. It changed from a hazard map to or from a risk map to a hazard map. They say, well, it's kind of like a flood hazard map where you can have floods come. This is where you can have fire come. There's no real boundaries, and because floods, you can predict and do mathematical calculations of where this water is going to get to and what the height is. You can't tell from one year to the next where fire is going to go. And one of the biggest things that impact fire is winds, like what happened in the latest California fires. It was the Santana winds that 70, 80, 100 mile an hour hot, dry winds blow through the southern Oregon area or Southern California area. And it just took those fires to where people couldn't even believe where they were going to go. So what happened with the map is they changed it from a risk to a hazard, saying that this is going to give people an idea of where the worst possible things would be based on climate, weather, vegetation, and topography. State of Oregon State University was tasked of trying to come up with these maps, and most of it is, they say it's based on science, but what it's based on is computer models of what they think fire would do. There's no science from my perspective of being able to come up with a firm number of this is where it's going to go and this is how it's going to affect you. So it's just a big guess, and it's not something that they can really hang their hat on. And that's one of the big things in any appeals is they will not allow appeals to be based on what you have done to your personal property. You could clear every stick of vegetation off and you could still be in the high fire danger area, and you're subject to these inspections and specifications. So the map was re-released. It came out on January 7th. There is a 60-day appeal period. We're in the middle of that right now, well, in the first parts of it right now. And so we're trying to get people educated on what is going to be the impacts, what they can do to try and appeal it, to try and address their own personal property. As county commissioners, my position is I would urge you to appeal on behalf of the citizens of Josephine County. I'm making the same appeal to Jackson County commissioners. I've been talking with Colleen Roberts down there. She's very aware of this. We've been in communication back and forth. So I'll go to their board meeting tomorrow and ask that they would appeal on behalf of the citizens of Jackson County. I can go into more details if you'd like. I don't know how much you'd like to do on Thursday night. I've prepared a PowerPoint presentation. I can go into more detail, provide for questions for people that I can try and answer. And my my place is to serve you as the representatives of Josephine County. I still have a real tie to the community even after I left employment of the county, and still want to see the best for what we have here. Proud to be the best. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or whatever.
Well, thank you for that introduction. That really helps. I've learned something that I didn't know before. I think where we're at right now is Commissioner Smith is taking the lead on this. And as far as I'm concerned, however you want to structure the meeting that we're having on Thursday evening, that's up to you. If Commissioner Barnett agrees with that, I'm not sure, but it sounds like this is in your wheelhouse. You know this better than I think the both of us combined. And as far as how that meeting is going to take place, I think it'd be okay to delegate that responsibility to you, and you can dig into it as deep as you want. I think ultimately the people will have questions. And we also need to have an idea of a path of where do we want to go and how are we going to get there? I think those are the big questions.
I concur with you, Chair. Yes, Commissioner Smith and Bob, thank you for your time here.
Sure.
This is awesome. I learned something too, just like Commissioner Black. We all learn something when we have an expert like you talking to us. There's a lot of concern over this, and Commissioner Smith, I appreciate you taking the lead on this. I look for a productive Thursday.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I would like to add something to read into the record. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but this goes through 10 different agencies, doesn't it, in the state? We know it's Oregon Department of Forestry, or OSU, Fire Marshal, the Buildings Code Division, and the Division of Financial Regulations, and the Wildlife Program Advisory Council. This will, in my opinion,
Half the list.
that's half the list. That's half the list of the agencies. In my opinion, this legislation will grow county, state government by a minimum of 25%, a minimum of 25%. Because every one of those agencies is going to have to add staff, computers, office space to implement this law. What's in this? What's inside Senate Bill 762? It's only 26 pages. Would you be surprised what's in this legislation? So they have the map. The map is key to this. If the map fails, the legislation failed. Okay, because the maps is absolutely key to this. Then you have defensible spaces, as Bob said. Then you have land use regulations, building codes, health system. Now, there's a whole thing in this law about smoke. Did you know, as a county government, we will be required to make safe spaces on smoky days for people to harbor from the smoke? That's a requirement of this. We, as a county government, will be required to set up some kind of buildings that people can escape the smoke in.
It's similar to the cold weather
The warming
Yeah.
shelter.
Warming
shelters.
Yeah.
They want smoke
Shelters.
places. One of the things Ron hasn't hit real big is LCDC. They have not fully weighed in. They said it's too soon for us to make our position known. But knowing LCDC as I do, and looking at the new legislation that's being proposed, brand new Senate Bill 768, that's up right now. It will say in farm and forest zones, if you're not doing a farm dwelling or a forest requirement dwelling, if you're in a wildfire hazard area, the high and within the WUI, you can't build a building, no dwelling at all.
Here's a
That's going
little,
to significantly impact.
Yeah, so, we've got a housing need. We've got a housing need and they're trying to take that away. Another one built, Senate Bill 78. If you lose a building or want to replace a building out in the forest farm areas, no more than 2,500 square feet or an increase of maximum of 10% of the structure that you're replacing.
plus it's hardened, has to be hardened in defensible
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, you
So
gotta
new
do that.
requirements.
So more and more, this is going to exponentially grow, and I know 1,000 Friends of Oregon have already put in their comments saying any place that is in a high wildfire hazard area and within the wildland urban interface, they don't want any structures at all, whether it's farm building or non-farm building, forest building or non-forest building. Next, they're gonna hit the residential, the rural residential, that they're gonna wanna keep that out because they're saying any place that there is a high hazard, we should not allow people. It goes big. And one of the things I wanted to really make sure you were here, because of that whole thing of the appeal on behalf of the county. Your legal expertise is gonna be critical to try and have that involved of what are the parts of the ordinance that can be challenged. Because it's not about the physical improvements on the property, but it's about the process of how they got it here. That's one of the things that I'd like to speak to you
Yes,
in
absolutely.
more detail on that. I talked to a gentleman this morning that they're trying to form a group down in Medford, that they've got some neighbors together to try and hire a lawyer. Because one of the things that it says is anybody that appeals, you can do it personally as a property owner unless your property is in a trust. If it's in a trust, you must hire an attorney to file an appeal on your behalf. It's trust, corporations, LLCs, any kind of a business ownership of property. But how many people have put it into a trust, not for business purposes, but just for family planning purposes? And in this last go around, the Senate Bill 80, that's when they changed it to it has to be conducted as a contested case under ORS 183. And that just, I think it was by design to try and intimidate people to where they'll just give up and won't even bother.
The big part about this bill that's not being discussed and we don't understand yet is that prior to Senate Bill 762, ODF was allowed to charge $25 per tax lot for their fire assessment and protection. With the advent of this bill, that cap has been totally removed. So sky's the limit. We have no idea what they're gonna charge for that fire assessment and protection. It could be anything. Another aspect that people don't understand, and that's a big one because we don't know the cost. Is there any cost calculations on that? So that could be the sky's the limit. We have no idea. Oregon Conservation Corps. This is in this bill. This is for young people between the ages of 13 and 26. And they have to be approved by a youth, qualified by a youth development organization, may participate in projects undertaken by the Corps. And this is a little group that's gonna go around and a youth group that's gonna go around and parade around the forest and move twigs around, but I'll guarantee you, there'll be hundreds of millions of dollars spent on this thing. It is a cash cow. The one that bothers me the most is ODF. No, we don't know what the cost is gonna be. That could be anything. It could be just a slush fund for the state to dip into. We don't know, but that's to me is the unknown that's gonna affect everybody, no matter if you have your home all hardened and you get all certified and you're all good, you're still gonna pay that exorbitant cost, whatever that cost is. $25 was quite a lot, but now it's whatever they want to charge. We got no idea what that's gonna be.
There is a subcommittee at the state level that's looking at how to pay for wildfire coverage. They don't have a full understanding yet. They don't have a complete proposal to put on the table, but that's something that will be in this legislative session. Things that have been offered is every property owner in the state of Oregon has to pay $1 or $2 into a fund to cover wildfire. They want to take it out of the general fund that covers wildfire fighting, and they want to start a brand new fund just to cover that. Senator Golden has asked that we take a big chunk of the kicker back and put that aside and use the interest off of that to help pay for firefighting. So financing of fire is going to be a big issue at this legislative session.
The question, you mentioned Thousands Friends of Oregon is for this. Are the urban counties for this as well? Is this an urban versus rural type of a thing, or do we know?
The valley, the Willamette Valley is basically in an area that is not impacted by this, so they don't care.
They don't care because it's all irrigated ag land.
Yeah, they did some modification to the map to try and take some irrigation properties out of it. And they dropped a few parcels, a couple of thousand maybe, tax lots out of the state, but we're still over 100,000 tax lots that are gonna be impacted just by this legislation. And it's just gonna get worse as time goes on, as they expand and take more in, because the map is supposed to be revised or reviewed every 5 years, and they will expand and change it as time goes on. Part of it is what they call the WUI, Wildland Urban Interface. I live out on West Evans, and because of the checkerboard ownership patterns, we've got some BLM and some big pieces. So some of the houses along West Evans Creek are not in the Wildland Urban Interface, and some are. Same trees, same road access, everything is the same except by the computer modeling, some are in, some are out. So it doesn't make a lot of sense from a practical standpoint.
The commissioners, the commissioners at the last board, and you might have been there, Herman Bertschegger had a similar forum at Ann Basker last year. Were you part of that? Association of Counties. We had a full room in there.
Yeah.
And we talked to all the county commissioners in every single county that were a part of it. And they spoke up, and the citizens were resounding, going, hey, redo this map. This isn't fair. And that got pushed off. So how is this going to change? What can we?
It isn't changed at all.
Okay.
Because there was a provision in the statute that says people can make comments
Which we
before
did.
the map is
Okay.
adopted, and a Board of Forestry from Oregon State Forestry had their meeting. They made absolutely no comments of all the written opposition to it, because they had a hearings officer that had some by Zoom, and then all the letters that came in. He said it was almost to the letter opposed to this, and they didn't even talk about it. They just rubber stamped it.
It's a bummer because every county, I watched it, I was in that room.
Yeah.
Every county commissioners, they all got to speak from the Association of Counties about how their constituents and their counties, and look at our full room, we're a resounding redo this fire map.
Yeah.
And they didn't listen to us.
In regards to that, Jackson County sent out a letter to every county in the state. And their letter was to have all the counties join together to repeal this law. Only 3 counties responded. And Josephine County was not one of them.
How did that happen? I mean, I'm just curious, because we were a resounding redo the map. I mean, we've been to forums in the past, Commissioner Smith.
Yeah.
Remember before 4 years ago when this all came to a head, and everybody panicked, and we had like 3 different meetings, and it was like, where's this going? The people are speaking, but it felt like we're not getting anywhere. Okay.
It's
Yeah.
unfortunate what happened in the past, but here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are, and we do what we can with what we can. A question I have is, in regards to, can we partner up, so to speak, with the other counties that may be in opposition to this? Would that be a force multiplier? And I'm speaking on behalf of the county, not as the county properties, but also as all the residencies. You said that the county, this board can act on behalf of not just the properties we own, but also all the citizens within the boundary of the county. Is that something that we could?
Mr. Chair, I have reached out to Jackson County and to Douglas County. I feel 2 counties would join us. I've talked to Tim Freeman and Colleen Roberts in Jackson County. They're on board with us. And I think if I know one thing about politics, numbers are what's important. The more counties, the more people we get out of, the better chance we have of changing this trajectory on this horrible legislation.
And part of it is getting the people and the information out where people hear the objection. Because when it's in a letter somewhere, the state just ignores it. So we need to get more things into the public forum. I know I've been on Bill Meyer a couple of times. I'm gonna try and get a hold of Lars Larson to try and get this information out. Because I know a lot of people, when the first map was withdrawn, they said, it's done. We don't have to worry about it anymore. But it's come back and they've made it on steroids, in my estimation, by going to the contested case requirement and all the other things that are involved.
Well, I agree. When those letters went out, those registered letters went out, my phone started ringing.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what's this? And I would say to them, this has been in the making for a long time. Is this the first you've heard of it? And some people would say yes. So it's unfortunate that we didn't get the message out. But moving forward, what, besides educating the people, this is beyond a letter writing campaign. Is this a class action type of an action, or what are we talking about here as options for us to do as a county or as a group of counties?
Well, some people have said, looking at their latest tax bill, that the value of their land has gone down. So if it's an impact in that level, if we can make a causal relationship, then would that be class actionable?
Well, I'm happy to talk with you about that because I just had a discussion this morning with the assessor. So I don't want to put that right out there right now, but when we talk offline, I can give you the
Okay,
latest
yeah,
on that.
that's something that people are talking about. I know there's a Facebook page called the old ODF Wildfire page. People on there talking about class action suits. So we're trying to get people organized to the point where we can do something. Because I know the appeals, there's a deadline to get them submitted, but it doesn't have to go into all your details of your appeal. It's putting your marker in saying, I'm going to appeal based on it's not in compliance with state law or whatever. And then they're supposed to contact us and work out what information is available. And the hearings officer, I think it's an administrative law judge per 183. They're supposed to rule what kind of questions we can ask and demand information from the state as a part of the whole process. And most people, they don't know what this is going to entail or how to fight it or anything else. I know it because that was my wheelhouse, is dealing with land use.
So Thursday is where we're gonna have a big discussion. So Bob, you're gonna be there for that. So I know we're breaking into it right now, but I think Thursday is gonna be where maybe more of this will come out from citizens and stuff about their concerns and it'll work. So.
Director Sellers, could you come up? You might have some input here.
I just
considering your.
want to provide a little bit of input. Again, my name's Michael Sellers. I'm the Director of Information Technology and Emergency Management, but prior to this, I worked in the legislature. So I worked on 762 and Senate Bill 80.
I'm sorry.
And worked, we're trying to, it was a big problem. It was the beginnings of this process started in 15 and 16. So, but
Do we need to declare conflict of interest in any way, just to be on the safe side? Or declare whether you have a conflict of interest of any kind here? Are you on the map?
I don't know if there would be a conflict.
That's not to debate it at this point. I mean, if you're on the map, do you know if you're on the map?
Yeah, I think I am on the map. But
Do you
It's a
want to just
statewide
put a
map.
marker down that you may have a
Yeah.
potential or
I
actual
just-
conflict of interest?
yeah, okay.
Be
I might have a
careful.
potential
Yeah.
conflict of interest because I live in Josephine County where 80% of the map is.
Okay.
Thank you for indulging.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Sorry. I just want to point out the timing. That's the reason why I wanted to approach was the appeal. It says specifically on their website, it talks about, it says the appeal can be from a property owner or a local government. They can appeal either the classification or the designation that is within the WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface. The point is that the time is of the essence component is because it starts the day that everything was mailed out, which was the 7th of January. So that means that the 8th of March is the last day to submit an appeal. So
It's on a Saturday.
yes, sir. And we can do it electronically. There's different ways to do it, but the county, if the county is going to be involved, there's a deadline for the county, I guess is the point. And the reason why I brought up Commissioner Barnett, as you mentioned, there's a meeting on Thursday, but that meeting won't be televised because it's town hall. And so I wanted to make sure we got it on the record for those watching at home. And
Thank you. I was gonna ask if we were gonna have any streaming or anything on that.
It could possibly be recorded, but the county's not gonna be televising because it's a town hall, so it's not the type of meeting that we have to
Correct.
broadcast.
Gotcha.
It's
Okay.
not required, but would be to our best interest to do that or
That-
not?
I would say, I would offer it to the board, but we don't quite have the technology or the staffing to be able to.
That's the real explanation, isn't
Okay.
it? Yeah,
Yeah, it's not
reasonable
reasonable.
efforts have been
Okay,
made to do that, but
Maybe-
it's-
Mr. Chair.
yes.
It's not reasonable.
I have people come to videotape it, and we have discussed the possibility of live streaming it. I think it's gonna be dependent upon the internet connection there at the fairgrounds, which should be fairly good. So it may be live streamed. It will be recorded for future reference. I don't know about live streaming.
but all reasonable efforts will be made
Yeah.
to.
Somebody will be recording.
Also, we're putting a letter together to ask for 120-day extension on the appeal. And that's gonna go out real quick. That is gonna be, that letter is particularly gonna be handed to people in this meeting. And we can do one as a county, but I kind of figure if we can start to overload their system with appeals and letter cease and desist, asking for an extension on the appeal process. I think if we get enough letters in there, they're gonna give us an extension on the appeals process. If there's enough people that been here, done that, you have to have the numbers. If we can get 20 to 30,000 people in Josephine, Jackson, and Douglas counties to raise up and write these letters and inundate these phone lines and call Jeff Golden, if people will take action, we'll get somewhere. If people sit at home and watch TV, this thing's gonna come down on us like a ton of bricks.
A question I have on ultimately, what is the best result that we could hope for in this action?
Have them withdraw the map again and try and get them to revisit the legislation and change it. That's what needs to.
Or the methodology used by OSU, I think would accomplish the same thing. And I haven't delved into that. But in my estimation, preliminarily, I think if we can get a correct analysis from OSU, more accurate in terms of the reality on the ground, that just might get the situation
Classification, so
addressed.
just
At least for,
reclassifying the tax lots.
yeah, for, not for everybody necessarily, but for a chunk of properties. Does that sound rational? Well, okay, not putting you on the spot.
Well,
Not putting you on the spot.
It may be rational. Is that my preferred solution? No, because I think the whole thing is flawed from the beginning because it's just based on analysis and they're doing mandatory land use actions that you've got to come into compliance based on their, well, gee, we think it's going to be this or that. Because I've asked them specifically, because in the statute, it says, if you have a number between this range and this range, you're a medium. In this range and this range, it's low. If it's over this, it's high. I said, where do you get those numbers from? And they don't come out.
From the OSU modeling system, I suspect. is where-
Yeah, from their modeling
That's what I'm saying.
system, but I go, I can't verify that those are accurate or correct because I can't get to their data. That's part of the
There's
problem.
been no boots on the ground to do this hazard
Yeah,
assessment.
none has been field verified. We don't know what's the accuracy of their registration points on the ground for the different layers that they've put in. Because they're implementing it at a tax lot level, but their analysis is at a neighborhood level. How do we know that those line up?
Well, it's actually, the analysis is a landscape level, which is much bigger than a neighborhood. So the law says the hazard must be laid out on a landscape basis. But then you look at the appeal process, you got to appeal on tax loss basis, but the map is not detailed enough for you to actually do that. Right, Bob? You cannot see your tax lot and get down to where you can honestly make an appeal. So the appeal process is flawed.
So by design, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
Commissioner, one of the things, so 762 was the bill that passed. There was an iteration of that bill in a previous legislative session where one of the topics that was debated was even if you had a perfect methodology, you're still requiring mandatory land changes to your rights as a property owner. So it doesn't matter, even if your methodology is perfect, you'd have to be able to prove that those changes or the things that they're requiring you to do would protect you from the thing that they're worried about. And so no matter what, the bottom line is, what was brought up in that testimony was that the things that you're asking the property owner to do, either by changing their financial position or asking them to do work on their property, that's the violation. It's the violation of their property rights that way, regardless of the methodology. So the methodology is one component, but in a previous iteration of this bill, testimony that was brought up was that no matter what, you're still affecting people's property rights, even if your methodology is perfect.
Well, the methodology shrinks the map, you know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And so you, Bob, and you don't have to answer today, but think about this. This is a food for thought. Whether the land use would be a decision by the state? Does it require an amendment to the comp plan? Do we really start stepping on top of local jurisdiction here?
LCDC is proposing that, and it does say that LCDC will look at that, and they're supposed to comment. They haven't come through with their full thing yet, but it would be a land use decision.
Yes, got it. And I'm not sadly surprised that that's what LCDC is doing at the moment, because they may have a sense
Mhm.
of where that's going.
Yeah,
And so I don't know, but that may feed any kind of motion for extension of an appeal deadline,
Mhm.
because that's a critical question when you really get down to it. I think you understand where I'm going with that. I mean, you understand
Yes, sir,
where I'm going? Yeah, so. Interesting. So yeah, I mean, okay, so let's talk some more about, because local jurisdiction ostensibly is in charge of land use in the state of Oregon, not the state. And I know exceptions abound, and the exceptions tend to swallow the rule, but that doesn't mean they have to. Anyway, something to think about.
absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions for Mr. Hart here?
Well, let me give you a little something else that's inside this law. Prescribed fire.
Say again?
Prescribed fire is in this law, okay? The state forestry department shall adopt rules to clarify that a person may, one, conduct a prescribed fire that burns across landowners' ownership boundaries if the person obtains a permit for the fire as described in ORS 477.515 and complies with the conditions of the permit. In other words, they're gonna set up groups. And most of these groups are gonna get a permit from the state to go out and do prescribed burns, and they can burn across your property.
And you have no recourse.
You have no recourse at all.
Well, it's a horrible legislation, and we have to do everything to fight it. I think we can get a group of counties to come with us. Cause I talked to someone, I think Hood County, we should reach out to Hood County because they're hard hit on this map. If you take a good look at the map, you'll understand why only 3 counties agreed with Jackson County, because we are absolutely the hardest hit county in the state. We are North Valley is the hardest hit area in the whole state right now. Next hardest hit is Jackson County, next hardest hit is Douglas County. But then you get over in Eastern Oregon, where you don't have the wildlands urban interface because the houses, it's a 40-acre plot. If they have so many houses inside a 40-acre plot, you get classified as the wildlife urban interface. But you get over in Eastern Oregon, and they even though they're high hazard, the whole state's high hazard almost, except for the coast, they are not regulated because they're not in the wildland urban interface. So you have to get into those counties that have a little denser population that's towards forested land. So that's part of the reason I think that Jackson County didn't get more people to come with them on this repeal effort. But we, I think, as a county, should reach out to these other counties, and I got the map. I know which counties are gonna be the hardest hit. But I went up to Association of Oregon Counties where there was probably 30 new commissioners there. And only 1 or 2 even knew about this. They didn't know about this at all. And they're the new commissioners, and they weren't concerned about it. They didn't, because it doesn't affect their county. So it's a problem in that we are the hardest hit, Jackson County, Douglas County, and then maybe some of those on the Columbia Gorge, but yeah. So I guess we're in the bullseye, guys.
Yeah, you're in the leadership position on how to try and attack this. As I know, Jackson County is not in OAC. So even trying to get the AOC, Association of Oregon Counties, there's not that many, and Jackson County, which is a big hit on this one, they're not even a part of it. They didn't feel they were getting the service out of
Well,
Association of Oregon Counties.
I don't know what Association of Oregon Counties did regarding this law.
We don't know.
They
We don't know
didn't step
that.
up to the plate to help us
Yeah.
because most of the counties they represent were not hard hit like us.
Yeah.
Well, they did have that forum, like I said, last year. AOC did put it on. Jackson County was excluded because they're not part of it. But I remember, I mean, it was a huge, if you go back to watch the video, they're going county by county. The county commissioners in those counties were going, look, we need to do something about this map. So I know there's some momentum. Now, some of those people are gone, but the new commissioners that are in, like some of us, we were kind of already knew what was going on from 4 years ago, you know?
Part of the problem is the state has basically ignored any of the comments because the advisory council that they have, I sent them a copy of the paper news article that says all of the counties are against this. That was after that meeting that they had.
Yeah, we're
And
against it.
they,
Yeah.
they looked at that and they said, well, we tried to talk to the counties and they just didn't seem to want to play nice with us. So we're just, this is too important. We're going to keep going.
Well, and they would say that, but that doesn't mean that they had to create the modeling system the way they did at OSU.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a statute that says
Yeah.
shall and must and that
Yeah.
kind of language.
Because when I talked to Andy at OSU to try and find out what's going on, and I go, where did you get the irrigation information for you to make those modeling adjustments? He says, well, it's from a program called EarMapper. And it's data, but you've got to have a specific GIS system to try and make it work. And I go, this is supposed to be available to the public for them to understand in clear language. Most people don't have a clue of what a GIS program is or how to make it work. So it's not in accordance with the rules they set to make this whole thing come together. So that's part of my appeal is they didn't do it in accordance with the requirements of state statute of how this whole thing was put together.
Let's keep talking about that.
So
All
I
right,
think
well, Thursday should be.
one thing needs to be put under the record, I believe. The day that they put your house on a map, they devalued your property. They actually took some of your property value the day they put it on the map. So we'll explore that avenue later.
One of the other big problems that has come up about this is about homeowners insurance. People get canceled or get.
That's the big one
raised.
right there. Yeah.
In the last legislative session, SB 82, they said it fixed all that because they made it illegal for the insurance industry to use the state map. And the insurance industry says, we don't use your state map. Okay, but insurance is still going crazy.
Yeah, they're canceling. Yeah.
Okay, let me, on this point, and this is just another discussion, not trying to get anybody's final statement. But to the extent that once the map gets finalized, the insurance company is supposed to be paying attention to it in the effect that they're not allowed to use it. Is there potentially a scrambling within the industry going on now to get their rate adjustments in ahead of the map being finalized? Potentially. And in that case, we need to think strategically, because if we kick this thing down the road, it may create a larger window of time for the insurance industry to exploit the situation.
One of the bigger issues that I look at, and it would be in your wheelhouse, is when people look on Zillow and things like that, if I'm looking for a property and it says it's high fire danger. People are walking away.
They walk away and people can't sell their homes. And that's what's going on. People are very concerned about selling their home and not being able to get fire insurance on their property to be buyer. So if you will,
Yeah,
example.
It may be, because you're already there, they may not cancel you, but a new buyer, they
Oh,
can't
yeah.
get a binder of the sale fell.
We're finding that out already. We
Yeah.
found that out last year. So, yeah.
We know that, so there's lots of problems with this whole thing, and that's why I don't want to just find a small part that they, I tweak it like this a little bit and it's all better. No, the whole thing needs to go away. There were some good parts in it because yes, we do have a fire danger here, and finding out where's the best place to get the most bang for the buck. That map would be great for that. Saying, where are the Manzanita fields that need to be cleared out? Those are really high fire danger areas. I understand that, but that's part of what the state responsibility is, to come in and try and help people to incentivize fixing this thing instead of the mandatory, here, let me use the stick on you. That's part of the whole problem.
There's hundreds of millions of dollars gonna be dished out because of this legislation. And instead of going to the property owners who are burdened with carrying out the hardening and the dispensable face, it's gonna go to environmental groups, forest collaboratives, this youth conservation corps that they're setting up. I would like to see this money go to the homeowners who are burdened with doing this. We could put that money to work as a county in North Valley up here and make it less. It's the number one hazard in the state, North Valley, number one hazard in the state. So I think we need to, as commissioners, think about how we're gonna address that issue. Illinois Valley is gonna get hit hard too, Cave Junction.
I've talked to Jeff Golden at length. One of the things I encourage is do it like you do for power. Tax credit for the work that you do to clean up your property. He says, I can't sell that in Salem. Says, anytime that it hits the wallet of the state, they don't want to have anything to do with it. The little program that they have now, especially in the high fire danger areas, if you have the state fire marshal come out and do an inspection, they'll give you a $250 card
Rebate.
to help defer it. I had a couple of trees removed, did some stuff, and it cost me $6,000. $250 is not gonna go very far trying to clean up stuff.
So if I may, yeah, on the subject of the state fire marshal inspections and the annual certifications that I think a lot of property owners need to file, they do get a determination, and correct me if I'm wrong, from the state fire marshal that the property is within a reduced hazard characterization from their perspective. Is that about right? No. What do they get for that then? From the fire marshal? The fire marshal makes a pronouncement about certain properties and the fire risk after they file.
They have the authority to do that?
Well, they haven't done the whole program yet. Right now, they're just doing what they call evaluations. It's not the inspection that's required by statute. Because what they put in the statute is if you do not comply, they will start a program to fine you if you don't come into compliance. I've emailed them and called them numerous occasions. What does that program look like? When is it going to be implemented? When do we have to be in compliance? Do you come out and inspect our properties before you start this implementation of violations? I've not got any response.
That's why I was asking about that, because if you'd got a response, you'd have something to start with from the state fire marshal's perspective, wouldn't you? In terms of their characterization of the property.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Well, that's too bad. Then, okay, okay.
Commissioner,
Yeah, makes sense.
I wanted to, so Commissioner Smith alluded to something at the beginning of this meeting, and I thought it would be relevant for me to bring up the legislative history on Senate Bill 762, just real quickly. So it's important. Obviously, there was Senate Bill 80 was supposed to be the fix, but in 2021, they introduced Senate Bill 762 on the 18th of February. Session had been happening just under a month. It was introduced as a committee bill from the Natural Resources and Wildfire Recovery Committee, which Senator Golden is the chair. It does not have a single sponsor on it. No legislator sponsored the bill. It was a committee bill. No senators signed onto the bill. It was introduced as a bill that said that the relating clause was directs Public Utility Commission to convene workshops. Was the relating clause in February. It sat in the Natural Resources and Wildfire Recovery meeting committee until April, at which point it was, as Commissioner Smith said, called gut and stuffed, which is they created an amendment that essentially removed the original bill and stuffed it with new language. And then it went to Ways and Means, where it languished until the day before the last day of the session, to which they suspended the rules and passed the bill with senators from Yamhill County, Douglas County, Josephine County, and Hood River County voting no. So that tells you the nature of the legislative history, as the commissioner alluded to at the beginning of the meeting. So,
Oh, you gotta,
Well, one thing I want everybody to realize, these fines and fees for not jumping through all their hoops are gonna be treated like property tax. And they can't foreclose on your property if you don't pay those. They're gonna be treated exactly, they don't call them a tax, they call them fines and fees. But they're gonna be treated just like a property tax, and they can foreclose on your property.
put a lien on your property.
Yeah, they can
Yeah,
put a lien
you're
on
gonna put a lien on your property.
Collect those, are those gonna be collected
We're
by the county,
required to
or
do
we're
it.
required to collect them here, do you think?
Collects for the state, we're required to do
Yeah.
that. Aren't we?
The way no, I think it's ODF. It's gonna piggyback on the ODF
Okay, you think so?
system currently, yeah. No, you know what, I'm sorry, Ron, but yes, we do have to pay that to the county first.
Yeah.
As part of the overall property tax bill. Yeah, so correct, but then you turn around and send the money to them. So, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but I think that's how that works.
I don't know.
There's
We're
still
gonna get
a
any-
lot of holes in this that they said, well, we'll deal with it later. And I know the state fire marshal said, right now, we're just trying to educate people. We're not gonna get into a hardline violation system yet. We want to educate people on what's gonna be good for them. And I don't doubt that, but
So,
you have some new administrator come in and they can be turned around just like that with nothing other than a new set of rules, not even new legislation. Because the legislation provides for it, so they'll come in with some administrative rules and we're done.
so I like to summarize this in a sense. So the state has decided for our own good, for the greater good, that we should be regulated in our land use on a possible, maybe in the future, something that might happen. This is almost like thought police, and that we know you're gonna commit a crime because we have thought police. We know you're gonna have a fire. Have we ever had a fire in Grants Pass? No. There's no history of it. Ever had a fire in North Valley? No. Small ones, but they went out. So they're doing all this on supposedly some future event that may possibly happen. How do you justify that?
Well, they're using Paradise, California as a test program
There's a whole
because,
story behind her.
yeah, Paradise, I mean,
And now
No power line
Alameda
thing.
and Overchain.
yeah, they're trying to predict, well, if it happened to one, it's gonna happen to everybody now. And it's not fair, I don't think.
Well, the driving force behind this, if you listen to Jeff Golden, is climate change. It is strictly about climate change. He says, we're in an emergency. He was on Bill Maher's. This is an emergency. Climate change is driving this. We have to do something. We have to do something because of climate change. Now, we just got pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord,
Good discussion,
Okay.
gentlemen.
Thursday should be a productive, Bob, again.
As an offer, if you wanted to do a business session and have me come in and make a presentation to you on a weekly business session, I do that too. It's one of the advantages of being quasi-retired.
We appreciate that offer, Mr. Hart. A couple of takeaways that I have from here is, I think it's incumbent upon us to reach out to other counties to see if we can get some support, help, because it's clear there's 3 or 4 counties that we know of, and maybe some other counties have changed their position now that this has progressed to the point of where it is right now. I think that's important, and I think it's also important that we look at a timeline, because when did the notices go out? January the
7th.
The 7th. Here we are on the 28th already, and before you know it, it's gonna be March the 1st. And I think it's incumbent upon us to take a look at the timeline and not get caught, run out of time.
Part of the reason we're putting together the cease and desist is asking for 120-day extension on the appeal process. I think they're just ramming this down, go through quickly. The appeal process is so complicated, your average homeowner won't be able to launch an appeal. And then that's dreadful legislation that by law, they're supposed to make this easy for somebody to understand, and it's not.
Okay, with that, any more comments?
Thank you for your
idea.
time.
We really appreciate you coming down here and sharing with us this afternoon, but also to help us out day after tomorrow. That's gonna be Thursday evening at the fairgrounds, and I'm not saying this because you already know this, but in case of anybody that's listening that hasn't been paying attention, it is at the fairgrounds on Thursday evening, starts at 7 o'clock.
So,
I'm
some,
gonna ask everybody to be on time because we've got a lot of things to talk about. I'm gonna also ask everybody to be respectful, obviously, at that meeting, because there will be some excitement, I'm sure, in the audience, so. Again,
I know at the last Jeff Golden Town Hall that we had down in Medford, there are some people from Weimer that were hot under the collar, and they called him everything but nice.
well, we're gonna be, we'll be civil and we'll be polite, but we also want to be productive.
Absolutely.
So that's the most important
And
thing.
informative to everybody. So
Yeah.
that's the whole
That's the
thing.
big thing, is to get people understanding that the program did not die. It's back on steroids, and it's now.
Okay, thank you for your time. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, with that, then we'll move on to agenda item number 4, and that is additional matters from the commissioners. Commissioner Smith, do you have anything that you'd like to?
my big matter is Senate Bill 76.
All right.
Wildfire hazard map. That's my big deal.
All right, well, we got your back 100%. Thank you. Commissioner Barnett, anything that you have matters?
Yes, we've got an email for the press release that's gonna go out on our website about Thursday night's event. So that just hit email.
Yeah.
So if we approve that, that'll be on our website for a press release. And also we got another press release for Friday for our birthday celebration out here at 6 PM. It might be raining, but shouldn't last that long, but 169 years, that press release went out today as well. That's all I have.
Okay, great. I have 2 items. First one is the tree planting. I think Director Streeter put an invitation on that event. That's
String of
February. Yes,
Yeah.
February the 6th, 7th, and 8th was the tree planting for the kids, and that's sponsored by a bunch of different organizations, and I know our forestry department is there and involved significantly. I would hope that one of us could or would volunteer to be there to participate.
I was gonna all volunteer.
I would, yeah.
I think I was
that'd be
gonna do
great,
that.
perfect.
If you guys don't mind.
No, that's great, that's fantastic. So, and then the second and last item I have is, as you'll remember, we discussed it last week about having an invocation. And talking about doing that at the WBS. WBS is tomorrow. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and as the chair, I'll lead out in the pledge. If I could get one of you two to possibly lead out an invocation for tomorrow, I think that would show good leadership. So if you guys can think about that, if one of you
Well,
could.
I'll do it.
Okay, great,
Okay.
fantastic. Thank you, Commissioner Smith.
Short and sweet.
Yes.
And what time
absolutely.
tomorrow we're gonna do that?
We're gonna do that at the WBS, so the WBS meets
Oh.
at 9 o'clock.
So we can-
We'll start with the
Perfect.
pledge and an invocation, and we'll continue on with our meeting as scheduled.
Question, Mr. Chair. Shouldn't we start with a prayer and then the pledge?
Why don't you do that?
Absolutely,
Yeah, let's
absolutely,
Pray for our meeting.
absolutely.
Pledge.
Thank you for
Okay.
correcting me on that. You're absolutely right. We will start with the pledge.
We do that
and
at
then-
sporting events too.
Yes.
So I was just thinking about that. We'll
My
pray. for-
apologies for.
Yeah. no worries.
And Mr. Chair, if you want, we can sit down a little bit, talk, we can talk about a little bit of the, no, a little bit about that.
Okay,
How about that?
you bet.
And also,
Yes, please.
okay, so press release, now would be the time for the board to either review and approve the press release or empower one of your members to approve and put it out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we can discuss that right now. So we have a mechanism for press releases. And we can either do it as a board, or we can designate one member of the board to be in charge of the press releases. We have some discussion on that and.
Well, I think Mr. PR.
All day, we're all full of talent in this room. Like I said, you got this and you got this. I'll take that one.
Okay,
If you guys don't
without
mind.
objection, and we'll put
Without
Commissioner
objection.
Barnett in charge of
And I
that.
have read the press release on substitute. It's fine.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Perfect.
So we'll do that. Great, thank you. And with that, with no more matters of the